Hi, I'm Hannah and I'm now a mum of 3 beautiful babies.
And I'm Garth, and this is little Oakley.
And we're going to share our birth story with you guys today. So, Oakley's pregnancy came as a bit of a shock. We were trying to have Oakley, but it happened on the first go. So, we were expecting our second took quite a while, and he just was meant to be straight away. So, it did come as a little bit of a shock, but a very welcome surprise. And my pregnancy with him was pretty much the same as the others, wasn't it? Sick.
Yeah, sick for a long time.
Vomiting most days, and every time I got in the car and vomit, and daycare drop-offs were pretty hard. But everyone that asks me in first trimester if I'm going to have another baby, the answer is always no. And then by the time I get to third trimester and start to feel great again, I'm like, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But other than the morning sickness, it was a pretty easy pregnancy. I did have low iron, so I had to have an iron infusion.
Yeah.
Felt a lot better after that. And during my pregnancy,
Yeah, we were doing a lot of work at the house.
as you can hear.
Yeah, you hear the jackhammer in the background. We were trying to raise 2 children, renovate a house, and run your pregnancy.
So we moved out of our house that we'd already been renovating for a year. We moved out into my parents' house, and when I was about 9 weeks pregnant, so I was probably at the peak of my morning sickness, and we moved all of our things into my parents' house, and we were only supposed to be there for 3 weeks and ended up there for the birth. So it was a bit longer than we had expected.
The deadline was the birth, but we didn't quite make it.
And the whole pregnancy, my daughter was we didn't know what we were having, what gender. My daughter was very excited to have a sister, and she was adamant that it was going to be a sister. But about 3 weeks before I went into labour, she came to me and said that she had an epiphany and that she thought it was going to be a boy now.
Which is good, because the entire time she said, I don't want a brother.
We were almost going to find out the gender just to prepare her, because we were so worried she wasn't going to be happy if it was a boy. But she came to me and she was like, I've actually decided I really want another brother. I was like, perfect. So she was going to be happy with either, which was great. But during the pregnancy, we contacted Shari and we started the hypnobirthing program again, just a refresher course, which was really great because we were so busy and so preoccupied with renovating and everything else going on in our lives that we didn't really have the time sort of to focus on the pregnancy or the birth. And I felt like I hadn't really done too much preparation. So it was really good to sort of get our minds back onto labour preparation and focusing on all the techniques that worked for us last time, and then sort of come out with some things that might assist us that we could have done better with Arlo's birth, although we found Arlo's birth to be a really good experience, really
good.
Positive.
It's good to get you in the right headspace as well prior to the birth. I think you needed to refocus.
Yeah, I think it was really hard for me because I sort of associated being at my parents' house with Avalia's birth, which I found traumatic. And I was worried that being at my parents' house again was going to put me back into that space. Whereas with my second, we were back in our house, and it was just such a positive experience. So I was trying to mimic everything that happened in that birth to make sure that it was the same experience. But I sort of realized it didn't have to be the exact same experience, and it could still be positive whilst being different. So Shari came to my parents' house and we did some optimal fetal positioning. We, what else did we do?
Your posterior, remember?
Yeah, so we thought that focusing on trying to get Bub in a good position beforehand and some things that we could do in labour might be beneficial for us. But we also went through refreshing all the breathing techniques, like the surge breath and the bearing down breath. So during the pregnancy, Garth and I made it a priority to, at the end of every second or third day, we put the kids to bed, hop into bed, and we do pick one thing that we were going to focus on that night. So whether it was the light touch
A lot of light touching. And I would fall asleep by then.
I did fall asleep almost every night. And we did the relaxation tracks, and I listened to the positive birth affirmations, and then we'd run through some like optimal fetal positioning exercises, so the forward leaning inversions and the side lying release. So Garth had helped me do those ones, which was really great. And it was, I often listen to like positive birth stories and podcasts while I was in the car driving my daughter to school, because it's quite a long drive from my parents' house. And I felt that was really good, like listening to other women's experiences, and I even listened to my own birth story a couple of times, and it was amazing how much I had forgotten. I'm so glad I filmed my birth story actually, and just listening back to how excited I was got me really excited again to have another baby. Like, I was so happy and had such a great experience that it was great to listen to how positive it could be. So I had my daughter at 37 weeks and I had my son at 38 weeks. So we kind of got to around that time, and we were both like...
I was telling everyone at work that I'm like, all right, could be any moment now. And then the time just kept ticking on.
And we kept putting deadlines on everyone with the house. We're like, okay, well, you know, don't even bother. If it's going to be in a couple of weeks, we're going to be like having a baby, we're not going to be able to do that, then we'd reach that time. Actually, you know, just keep going. We might get into the house. And yeah, it was a really funny time. But I was lucky because we were so busy, weren't we, that we weren't really focusing on it. And I knew that like the birth date is like, the due date is just an estimation, and most babies aren't actually born on their due date.
But you were getting a bit worried that the longer it went on, the bigger he was going to get, and the bigger the baby to come out.
Yeah, I had to sort of put that fear aside. Arlo was 3.6 kilos and he was 2 weeks early, so it was in the back of my mind that if I kept going over, that the baby could end up being quite big. But I quickly sort of got rid of that thought and didn't try to think about that too much, because that was the only thing that I kept saying to everyone, oh, I could do with an extra couple of weeks, you know, to get prepared, because I felt quite unprepared. So that's exactly what I got. It's what I asked for. So our due date rolled around and nothing really happened. I was getting like a few cramps here and there, but it wasn't until I was 3 days past my due date and I just felt like I really need to have a nap that afternoon. So I did. I went and had a sleep. And then I was getting some tightenings, but they weren't really strong. Like, we were like, oh, it's probably not labor. So I took some Panadol and went to bed about 8 o'clock. And I slept for 4 hours, which was good. And then I woke up to like a stronger tightening, and I was like, oh, that's a bit strange, that like in the middle of the night. And then when I went to the bathroom, I lost my mucus plug, and that's exactly how my labor started with both of my other two babies. Like, I lose the mucus plug and then it's just like, it all happens. So I went back to bed and slept for another 2 hours, and at this stage Garth was in Arlo's room because
Arlo had just worked out how to climb out of the cot. Perfect timing.
So you were in there till, I think I spent the whole night I spent the whole night in our room by myself pretty much, and then it was about 4:30 in the morning, and the tightenings were coming every 10 minutes or so, and they were like getting a little bit more intense. So I thought I should wake up Garth and get him to come in to our room, which he did. And I tried to lie back down to sleep, but nothing wasn't happening, so it's getting a little bit more uncomfortable. But I said to him, don't get too excited, because the sun will come up and it'll probably all fizzle out. I just was in denial, total denial that it was labour. And I think if I could just ignore it for as long as possible, that it wouldn't feel like I was in labour for a long time. So I just kept ignoring it. And as long as I could, I did.
But then it got to the stage where the sun had been up for a while and you're still getting the contractions or the surges, and decided maybe this is going to happen.
You want to make me some breakfast. And
hydrated.
At that point, I'd moved into my mum and dad's room because it was a lot bigger and it had room to have like the birth ball and everything. And my daughter was asleep in there, and she woke up to me on like hands and knees on the bed, and Garth was trying to feed me my breakfast, and I think I got a contraction and I don't know, made some sort of like noise, and she just turned around like half awake and she's like, "Mummy, why are you acting like a horse?" And I just could not stop laughing. And then I was on my phone trying to tell my friend who's a midwife that I'd probably need her to come in because she was going to be a Avaalia's support person. And she was just cracking up saying, "You're a horse that can use a phone." And I just couldn't stop laughing. She was a comedic relief that I needed. Anyway, so then I spoke to my friend and sort of gave the midwife a heads up that it could be happening, but you know, there was still about 5 or 6 minutes apart. But then by the time I'd finished calling everybody, they were more like 4 minutes apart. And I really wanted to wash my hair because I hadn't washed my hair for 3 days. So he helped me in the shower, and I really liked the shower, which is funny because I didn't like the shower with the other 2 labours at all. I had the shower head on my back, and I knew straight away the baby was in the same position, but I just didn't focus on it this time. And I knew the positions that worked for me last time, so I sort of ended up doing the same thing. A lot of hands and knees, a lot of leaning over the ball, and I was trying to sort of rock my hips side to side and move with the contraction rather than just being still.
You loved the pushing on your back.
Yeah, I didn't find that straight away, but
once you worked that out,
I asked Garth, that was a bit later on in the labour, but maybe it was in the shower, I can't remember. But I asked him to sort of put pressure on, like, I don't know, where was it?
your pelvis coming out.
Yeah, and just to like make some space in my hips. And it felt so good during a contraction. Like it really, I don't know if it was just the pressure, me thinking about that, or it was the fact that it made more space, but it just felt so much better. So then every single contraction, that was Garth's job. And I'm surprised your fingers didn't fall off because it was never hard enough.
Yeah.
But then Avaalia sat next to me and she was getting me orange juice, and then I was like, "No, Mummy doesn't really want orange juice." So she was like, "Water, my mummy needs water right now."
She was very helpful.
Run off and get water and make sure I was having sips in between, and she was getting teddies and putting them on me and telling me what position to try next.
Yeah, I've got the heat bag out as well. That was helpful.
Yeah, she told me I look like an orangutan.
Yeah.
But no, she was really funny. And then we called the midwife just to give her like a heads up and to see if she wanted to come to our house to do an internal, because that was the plan. I had done that with Arlo's birth, and I really liked knowing that I was 6 centimetres, that then I could go into the hospital without sort of being turned back, which is what happened with my first birth. So that was a bit of a fear of mine. But as soon as we'd spoken to the midwife and she heard how close the contractions were, and she heard me through a contraction, she was like, no, I think you should come straight into the hospital, straight into the birth centre. And we were like, is it too early? I'm not sure. Did you think it was too early?
Yeah, but then we started timing it and we realised that we were getting 4 and 10 and they were lasting about 50 seconds. And
we were at like my parents' house still, and they were all going to the boat show for the day. And my cousins from Melbourne started turning up. My grandparents were there. In the end, there was like 10 people in the kitchen. And I was coming downstairs and Garth was pushing onto my back, and I was sort of going with everything.
Everyone wanted to come say hello.
And everyone was like, "Hannah,
get out of here."
And all the best. And I was just like, oh my God, like what is going on? So we sort of went straight into the car at that point. I knew with Arlo's birth that I need to be on hands and knees leaning forward when I'm in labour. So I sort of leant over the passenger side seat, and Avaalia was in her car seat directly behind me. So we put the birth affirmations on and we listened to them the whole way to the hospital. And like I will just never forget, like today is the day you'll meet your little baby, and Avaalia would sort of repeat them to me. And Avaalia was sort of, I had my arms around the chair and Avaalia was holding my hands and saying, "Mummy, you're so brave. Mummy, you're so strong, and you're doing so well." Like she was so good the whole time, wasn't she? So supportive, and like she just wasn't one bit phased. We'd done a lot of preparation with her beforehand, so she knew exactly what to expect. She knew that I might make some strange noises. and that like
roaring like a lion.
Yeah, she was very prepared for that, and she thought it was really funny. She kept telling me what animal I sounded like, and it wasn't abnormal. She didn't think that it was anything to be concerned about, because we'd sort of said that pain was a good thing, and that if I looked like I was in pain, that was meant the baby was coming soon. So she knew exactly what to expect.
And she was feeding off us as well. Like everyone was calm, so she was calm as well.
Yeah, I felt really calm this time. Like I didn't feel like I felt like completely in control, and I say this birth was my most like conscious birth. I found sometimes with my other births it's like an out of body experience, and like you're experiencing it but you're not really there, but I really felt present the whole time. I knew everything that was happening, and I felt completely in control with everything that I was doing. And it was even like in the car, Garth sort of said, oh, have your contractions died down, because you seemed really calm during that one. And I said to him, that was probably the most intense one I had so far, but I just found the breathing to be so effective. And I really focused on listening to all of the affirmations. And then when we got to the hospital, I got out of the car, and like some women ran over to me with a wheelchair, trying to get me.
Hannah's like, no,
I
don't want it.
I don't need a wheelchair.
I want it. And then another lady walked past and she's like, I'm getting the wheelchair. And Hannah's like, no. And I'm like, just sit down and we'll just see what happens. See how you go. And then lucky we did, because
I was
you
half
wouldn't have done
hanging
that
out
walk.
of the wheelchair,
You wouldn't have made it.
No, I was like half hanging out, because I
Yeah.
couldn't sit on my bottom, because like the posterior position was like the last place you wanted to be. But I also couldn't really walk that distance.
That was too far.
So we needed to get there,
Yeah.
because none of us, like I'd already started to feel a little bit of pressure when I was in the car, so we didn't know how long we had until the baby was coming. But I had to go all the way through the food court, like through everyone, because it was in the middle of the day, because I kept saying, oh, I won't have a day birth, like it's always at night, it'll never be during the day. And all I wanted was a day birth where I'd had a full night's sleep the night before. Like this was my dream. I picked this day, I picked the time, like everything that I wanted, and that's exactly what was happening. So I was just in shock. I was like, but it's the day, like I'm gonna go into the night, like there's no way I'm gonna have a baby soon. But anyway, so we made it up to the birth suite, into the birth center.
Yeah.
And my midwife was already there, and she had made the room so beautiful.
All
Didn't
the
she?
candles and the
We walked
little
in,
scent machines.
yeah, Avalia straight away, she went, wow, and she was like, this is so beautiful. And she was looking around, and she's like, there's lights and a pool. And she knew that that was the room she was born in, and Arlo, because she saw the rainforest, and she was so excited when she walked in. And the birth pool was already filled up, luckily, because as soon as I walked in, the midwife was like, all right, take your pants off, hop in. You need to hop in now. So we did. And as soon as I got in the water, it was like the best feeling, like so nice. I stayed in all fours and sort of leant over the bath, and this is the first time I've asked you to get in the water too.
Yeah. Last time you didn't want me in there, and this time.
No, I sort of focused on something different every time, and this time was really Garth pushing onto my back every time I got a surge, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I needed him to get in the water so he could do that better. So how was it being in the water this time?
That was good.
Yeah.
I could relax, float around in the warm bath.
So yeah, I sort of, and then I started panicking, because I was like, I'm gonna have a baby, and my birth photographer hadn't got there yet. And I started to feel like a lot more pressure. And she ended up coming, so my friend came first. She's also a midwife. She came to be with Avalia about 10 minutes after we got there. And Avalia was just sitting on the side eating snacks, eating her like crackers and watching, and every now and again she'd say something really funny, and I'd like listen to it through my contraction, and then during in between having a break, I'd talk to her and sort of laugh about it. She had like a little plastic horse. She was swimming in the bath, and she was laughing at me, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was really good. Good energy to have there.
She was really excited. But then the birth photographer got there, and that was about 10 minutes before I had him. So my waters went.
Yeah,
That's what happened.
Yeah.
Just before the photographer got there. And I've never had it like this before. They popped, and then like it was a really loud pop and a gush, and I was sort of like laying half back in the water, and it was like a fountain sort of came up, And then all the vernix and like the membranes from my waters went into the pool. So it was like white. And Avalia, she's like, fluff, there's fluff everywhere. She's like, look, there's fluff all in the pool. And that was so funny. Like we were all laughing about that. But as soon as my waters had gone, that like intensity to bear down just got like completely overwhelming, that I just had to sort of go with it. And I think I started to like push down with each contraction, and my breaths changed. Like I was more doing the like, wasn't I?
Yeah, your breathing changed heaps.
And I was sort of like moaning really loudly, not like a screaming, but just like a really like low moan. And I heard Avalia say, she's roaring like a lion, the baby's coming, the baby's coming. Like she knew, like she noticed that change in me, and she was like, yep, the baby's coming. So she got down to the end and they were watching, and I sort of felt, I knew that the baby was low. I could feel the head just there, really, really close. And it was probably, how many more surges after that? Maybe 2 or 3 of sort of like bearing down with each contraction. I tried not to like rush it this time, because although I found Arlo's birth to be a really positive experience, the position that I was in, standing next to the bar, and that pressure of standing and not being in the water was so all-consuming that it just completely overtook me. Like I sort of felt like I lost control a little bit, and I couldn't control like him being born. Whereas this time, the position that I was in and just having the water as buoyancy, and I think everyone, it was a lot, it wasn't slow, it was still quite fast. I think he was still born in like 8 minutes or something from when I started to feel the urge. But it felt slow and it felt really controlled. So like I'd sort of breathe him, and I felt the baby move like slowly down. It wasn't like a expulsive feeling like with Arlo, which I found a lot. And everyone was telling me, just relax. And I kept saying, I am relaxed, didn't I? But I don't like my body.
You needed to just, your breathing.
Yeah, well, my body was like really stiff. And then when both Garth and my midwife were so good, like at reminding me, just relax. And then as soon as I said that, I'd just flop.
Yeah, it's funny. In between, we'd be like, relax. You're like, I'm relaxed, but your arms are all tensed up. We're like, no, relax your arms, relax your face. And then
as soon as they said, like, relax your body, relax your face, I was like, oh yeah, I'm tensing. And then I just sort of flopped.
Because I was kind of behind you in the bath, and then you just relax onto me. So it was like I was like the lounge.
I felt like I was relaxed until someone actually reminded me, and then I like consciously went, oh, actually, I'm really tense. And then I would relax in between each time. But the feeling that I got like when Arlo was crowning, like I found that to be quite intense. But this time around, like it was still intense, but nowhere near as intense as with Arlo. And I felt like the midwife saw him start to crown, and instead of sort of rushing that moment, she was like, no, just breathe really slowly. And I did, like I just breathed. And he just came out so slowly, and I really wanted to do that, so I was really happy that I was able to do that. And then when his head was out, everyone couldn't believe, like he came out and then he did a full rotation while his head was already out, so his shoulders did the full rotation, and I felt him move like completely all the way around, it wasn't even painful. It was a really cool, like it was a really weird feeling, but it was really quite cool. Like it was intense, but I wouldn't say it was like painful when he was moving. And then he was born on the next contraction after that, I think. And
then that was Avalia spotted. It was a boy. It was a boy straight away. And just baby came out, and then Avalia's like, it's a boy.
Not even 2 seconds. Like he sort of came out, and his bum sort of come up out of the water a little bit, and she was like, a baby boy, it's a baby boy. And we didn't really know whether to believe her or not, because we thought, oh, they're cord. So like we didn't really think anything about that, and then got him sort of on my chest, and it wasn't for a couple of maybe a minute or something afterwards, and then they were like, check what you have. And I was so sure that he was going to be a girl. So I was like pretty shocked, wasn't I?
You were.
But we were,
That was
so
very
happy
exciting.
to have a little boy. Yeah, it was so beautiful that Avalia got to announce that.
Mhm.
And then about maybe 30 seconds later, she was like, well, that was really great. I'm ready to go home now. Are you ready? And we were like, Mummy just needs a minute. She's still got to have the placenta. We've got to get out of the water.
Then I had to
And-
explain to her what the placenta is.
Well, we've been reading a lot of books beforehand on like what everything was. So she sort of half knew, but it was funny. Like I think she thought that was a really long time, but we got to the hospital to like
Bit after
up to,
10.
Yeah. Well, I think did we leave at 10? We weren't even there for an
Yeah,
hour.
not long after 10, and then baby born at 11 something. 11, 10.
Yeah. So it was really, really quick,
Yes.
but you know, in 4-year-old time, that was quite a long time.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we had about 5-10 minutes in the bath all together, and then we hopped out onto the bed to deliver the placenta.
Mhm.
So we did delayed cord clamping, and I had a physiological 3rd stage, so I didn't have to have any needles. I was in shock actually, because I had no vaginal examinations, no needles, I just had Panadol when I was at home the night before. And one thing, I forgot to mention, during the labour, I saw
Oh, the gas.
the gas machine. I'd completely forgotten about it because that was my favourite thing with Arlo's birth. I was so fixated on the gas. That was my thing to concentrate on. And I was like, oh, I've forgotten about the gas. So I asked my midwife, do I need the gas? And she's like, if you're asking me if you need it, you probably don't. And I just forgot about it. I was like, okay. And I just moved on. So I didn't even have the gas this time. Just didn't really need it.
Did very well.
Yeah, so then the midwife checked me and I had no tearing this time, and the placenta came away a lot quicker this time actually. It took about over an hour last time, but this time was only about 20 minutes. So Avalia got to cut the cord with you, didn't she?
She helped out.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit
She was
scary
a
for
bit
her.
nervous. She thought maybe we should be cutting the baby.
Yeah, you could see she was quite hesitant to cut it, but that was really
So she
sweet.
held my hand as I cut it.
Yeah, and she had her first cuddles, which was so nice, and I think it was so good for her bonding, to be there and watch the whole process and watch the baby be born.
Yeah, but Avalia is a very mature girl, so I think
and we'd done a lot of preparation.
so she handled it very well.
She was good.
She was good value to have there as well. It was good fun, very funny.
And he fed straight away and really, really well. He's got a tongue tie, like a heart-shaped tongue because it's quite tight. But initially we had Avalia's cut, so initially I thought to cut it straight away, but hasn't affected feeding at all. He's been amazing at feeding. Feeds both sides really well because I ended up feeding both my others just on one side. So hopefully we can make it with 2 sides this time.
It's all good.
Yeah. But he's been a dream baby so far. He's been really settled and he's fit into our family so well, and both Avalia and Arlo are so excited that he's here. It took my 2-year-old a couple of days to even realise that he was not a visitor.
When Oakley first came back, I think he must have thought it was his cousins who were also babies as well, who were recently born. So he didn't really pay much attention to him. But then after everyone had gone home and Hannah was up there breastfeeding him, I think that's when he realised that, this baby's
here to stay.
Yeah, here to stay. So he came over and had a little cuddle and patted him on the head.
He likes to cuddle him at night. He likes to get into bed with us.
He does a little.
Have a cuddle and he just pats his head. He's very gentle.
Yeah, he's done really well.
And he would just say, Papa, Papa. But other than that, he's not overly interested.
No.
But Avalia wants to constantly do everything for him, doesn't she?
Yeah.
So I hope that you enjoyed our birth story. It's so nice to have so many of you come along on our journey, and it's beautiful that you're so invested in our family. We're just so over the moon to welcome Oakley to our family. And a lot of you had a lot of questions, so we thought that we'd pick out the most asked questions and answer them for you.